Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, President Trump saying China must repay the U.S. for years of unfair trade, while Treasury Secretary Bessent doubles down on American economic resilience. Despite the tough tone, Washington says the door to a deal is still open.
Never bet against America.
With a declining economy and population, China found a new way to deal with negative data, shut it down entirely. We take a closer look at some key statistics Beijing is now hiding from the public eye. Online shopping giant Temu has stopped shipments of Chinese-made goods to the U.S., impacts from the ongoing U.S.-China trade war. And with tariffs dominating headlines, will bringing back manufacturing make the U.S. more competitive? We tap Michael Sekora of the Reagan White House for more. Before we dive into today's top story, we'd like to share an important update. You can now catch China in Focus on Beijing World every Tuesday instead of YouTube. We'll publish the link in the description box down below at that time, or you can search China in Focus at beijingworld.com. A new warning to China from the U.S. Treasury: reform your trade system or face a united front of new economic allies. President Trump said China has to repay the U.S. for, quote, ripping off the country, but added the door to a U.S.-China deal isn't fully shut. Meanwhile, Chinese leader Xi is headed to Moscow.
Never bet against America.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told investors Monday that China is the biggest piece in this trade puzzle. But China's retaliation contributed to U.S. market turmoil. Secretary Bessent warned Beijing not to challenge American strength.
The American economy is unstoppable. Throw whatever you will at our capital markets: the Great Depression, 2 world wars, 9/11, a COVID recession of the last few years, or sky-high inflation. Each time the American economy gets knocked down, it gets back up again. And it gets back up even stronger than it was before.
One day earlier, President Trump said China must repay what he described as its years of ripping off the U.S. He added, quote, China is eating the tariffs right now.
And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. China's getting killed right now. They're getting absolutely destroyed. Their factories are closing. Their unemployment is going through the roof. I'm not looking to do that to China.
Despite the tough talk, the door isn't entirely closed. President Trump says he's still open to a deal, but for now has no plans to speak directly with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. According to the Wall Street Journal, Beijing is looking to address U.S. concerns over fentanyl, a move that could potentially restart stalled trade talks.
In some cases, we'll sign. We don't have to sign. I'm going to be setting the deal. I'll be setting a tariff.
Meanwhile, Xi Jinping is headed to Moscow this week, joining Russian President Putin for a World War II victory anniversary. Reports say that the Chinese military will send an honor guard for the event. At the same time, the Kremlin says a meeting between President Trump and President Putin is necessary. But so far, no date or location has been confirmed. Analysts say Trump's sweeping tariffs are reshaping the global trade landscape and may be paving the way for a new economic alliance rooted in democratic values.
Obviously, in this trade puzzle, China is the biggest piece. It's possible that we could, as Ray Dalio might say, do a big, beautiful rebalancing. That if we want more manufacturing, everyone agrees except Chinese leadership that they need more consumption. We could actually do that together.
Secretary Bessent said he has been highly confident the U.S. will strike deals with the 17 trading partners that Washington is in talks with, excluding China. Data is a vital factor in today's world, be it China, a major player, has decided to hide some critical information, and it means policymakers and investors outside of China will struggle to understand the real situation in the country. What information has the country stopped releasing, and what's driving the change? NTD's Flora Hua has the story.
A Wall Street Journal analysis recently called out Beijing for suspending hundreds of statistics. Here's how it started. Last April, 2 major stock exchanges, Shanghai and Shenzhen, decided to stop releasing data on the real-time inflow and outflow of foreign investors. That's after foreign investors sold off over $2 billion worth of Chinese stocks within 2 weeks. Two major data sources from the property market were also shut down by the regime in 2022 after both saw steep declines. China's real estate crisis has wiped out billions of dollars from Chinese families in recent years. As for other numbers, China's unemployment data also went dark. In 2023, Beijing suddenly stopped releasing the youth unemployment rate after it neared 15%, a historic high. However, many economists have raised doubts due to Beijing's censorship, saying the true figure could top 40%. Zhang Dandan, a prominent economist from one of China's top schools, Peking University, also supports the calculation. Beijing also stopped disclosing how many people in urban areas are receiving unemployment aid. Turning to some demographic data, analysts argue China's official death toll during the COVID-19 pandemic was only a fraction of the true number. Based on NTD's research and expert analysis, China's COVID-19 related deaths may exceed 100 million. Official decisions also played into speculation. China stopped releasing data on cremated bodies in late 2022. Cremation is the country's most common method for managing human remains. What's more, the same way Japan studies domestic salt consumption, soy sauce, an essential ingredient in Chinese cuisine, could also reflect population changes. China stopped updating its soy sauce production data in mid-2021 when the pandemic surged across China. There's also another factor. Challenging the regime's grasp on data could mean harsh retribution for both Chinese citizens and foreign groups. Several well-known Chinese economists have been forced to leave their posts or have faced censorship because they raised doubts over China's GDP data. Others cited concerns over Beijing's recent retaliation against U.S. tariffs. In 2023, Beijing launched a broad clampdown on foreign due diligence firms, sending Chinese authorities to raid the offices of 3 U.S. consultancy firms in China. As justification, the regime cited concerns about sensitive data linked to China's national security. Zooming out, looking at unconventional data markers could more accurately reflect the real situation inside China. For the rest of the world, working with China without access to critical statistics presents a major challenge. Flora Hua, NTD News.
Chinese online shopping giant Temu is halting shipments of Chinese-made goods to customers in the U.S. This comes as the de minimis exemption ended on Friday, a rule that allowed packages valued at $800 or less to enter the U.S. duty-free. President Trump highlighted that the exemption impacted small businesses in the U.S. by having them compete with cheap imports. Temu's currently taken down some products shipped from China. Meanwhile, another Chinese-owned e-commerce platform, Shein, announced on April 25th it would impose import fees up to 150% on Chinese goods imported to the U.S. The U.S. earlier imposed tariffs of up to 145% on China amid the ongoing trade war. Recent import charges also impacted China's air cargo shipments to the U.S. Right before the new order kicked in, demand for air cargo to the U.S. increased. But once the de minimis exemption ended, demand dropped sharply. China's 3 largest airlines are heavily reliant on e-commerce for growth, are expected to be hit the hardest. Now turning to trade talks with Taiwan. Taiwan's government said on Saturday it had concluded its first round of substantive tariff talks with the United States, describing the atmosphere as frank and cordial.
Taiwan's government said on Saturday that it concluded its first round of tariff talks with the United States.
U.S. officials have confirmed that Taiwan is among the first 4 countries for reciprocal tariff negotiations, along with Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. This reflects the United States' view of these countries as playing critical roles in supply chain integration.
The talks focused on tariffs, non-tariff trade barriers, and various other U.S.-Taiwan issues. Both sides expressed their common expectations for strengthening U.S.-Taiwan economic and trade cooperation. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te said Taiwan has the capability to advance the United States' AI vision. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, also known as TSMC, announced $100 billion investment in the U.S. in March.
Taiwan is willing to invest in the U.S. and support its reindustrialization efforts. Taiwan also has the capability to advance President Trump's vision of establishing the U.S. as a global hub for AI.
As the U.S. brings manufacturing back, Taiwan and Japan can play key roles. Taiwan can contribute not only in semiconductor manufacturing, but also in much traditional manufacturing, like machine tools, metal processing, and petrochemicals. Its manufacturing sectors have the capacity to invest in the U.S. beyond semiconductors.
Taiwan runs a large trade surplus with the U.S. It was due to be hit with 32% reciprocal tariffs. President Trump last month put all reciprocal tariffs on pause for 90 days, except those targeting China. Reporting from Taiwan, Joy Chu, NTD News.
Amid tariff talks, there's a big focus on bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. But what does that actually mean in terms of making the U.S. more competitive? We sat down with Michael Sekora, founding director of the Socrates Project in the Reagan White House, for more. Mike Sekora, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's always good to be here.
You mentioned before how, there's the finance-based planning and then technology-based planning. Right now, if we look at what the U.S. is doing, there's a lot on tariffs, pouring a lot of money, $500 billion, into, say, AI development, quantum. It sounds like it's more of that finance base. So what should the U.S. technology-based planning be? Especially, you see all the tariffs and all the talk about bringing back manufacturing. What is our end goal here?
We have to develop a national technology strategy. And again, this is not industrial policy, okay? Under President Reagan in the Socrates Project, we developed the means to do two things. Number one, exploit technology more effectively than China. We were on track to contain China when Socrates was abolished by President Bush, okay? The Socrates Project was designed to enable us to have a national technology strategy which did not violate basically the premises of the United States with free markets and things like that, as well as allowing individual organizations to develop technology strategies. That's the key. And the problem is, one of the problems is people look for simple solutions. So the solution is not saying we're just going to focus on AI or quantum and things like that, but rather the solution is developing a technology strategy which is covering all the technologies, because AI is not the silver bullet. The United States has, and Americans have a tendency to look for that next silver bullet technology. AI, drones, green energy, which is going to solve the day. No, all technology has the potential of providing a competitive advantage. High tech, low tech, medium tech, hard technology, soft technology, and it's a matter of adroitly maneuvering in that full exploitation. Or as we say, the key is not finance, the key is not technology, the key is not a key technology like AI. The key is the adroit maneuvering and the exploitation of the technology. That's what enabled China to go from producing trinkets to now beating us in more and more industries in 25 short years. We need to go back to technology-based planning, but at the level far beyond what China can execute, which is what we developed in the Socrates Project for President Reagan.
Now, when it comes to the Chinese regime's success, a lot of it is that they play by a different rule book. Normally, they ignore the rules. So how should the U.S. do that without, breaking all of these international rules?
Well, they're willing to bend the rules to their advantage. I mean, it's like when people look at China and they say it's, government-centric planning and everything else. It's not really, it's a hybrid. The United States has some unbelievable opportunities and capabilities because of ingenuity, self-reliance, freedom, and everything else. But what Socrates was designed to do was to leverage that against China, okay, such that we don't have to break the rules, okay, because we know from their technology strategy what they're doing, why they're doing it, and we can outmaneuver them in that foundational level of technology exploitation, okay. And it's conceptually it's simple, Execution, it's more complex. So covering it in a few minutes is a challenge, but that's what we have to do. Yes, they violate laws all the time, okay? But if we're at the foundational level and can outmaneuver them in the actual technology exploitation, we can counter those maneuvers in their part where they violate without actually violating them ourselves and fully exploiting the promise and the capabilities of the United States, America, of freedom, self-governance, and everything else.
A delicate dance indeed. Mike Sekora, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
To watch the full interview with Michael Sekora, check it out on ntd.com. Coming up, the U.S. Secretary of Defense meets with his Peruvian counterpart, highlighting concerns about China's influence in the region.
And together, in order to prevent conflict, we need to robustly deter China's potential threats in the hemispheres.
As the U.S.-China trade war continues, countries are feeling pressure to take sides in global trade negotiations. How are some responding when it comes to China's Belt and Road Initiative? And China has been expanding its influence in the Caribbean, raising significant U.S. national security concerns. How's the U.S. responding? That and more here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth met with his Peruvian counterpart on Monday, highlighting concerns over China's growing influence in South America. Take a listen.
Beijing is investing and operating in the region for unfair economic gain. And together, in order to prevent conflict, we need to robustly deter China's potential threats in the hemisphere.
Hegseth also pointed to progress on key issues, including efforts to combat human trafficking and curb illegal immigration in the region. As the trade war between the U.S. and China continues, countries are being forced to choose a side in trade negotiations.
The U.S. has opened its doors for fair trade agreements, while China is attempting to secure partnerships through its Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. The plan promises trade and funding for infrastructure projects, like railways, for countries that sign on. Chinese leader Xi Jinping recently visited Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia, where he signed a series of similar agreements. These countries' economies depend heavily on exports to the U.S. At the same time, they have strong trade relations with China. Worth noting, China's Belt and Road Initiative is largely criticized in the West. It's accused of promoting unfair trade, increasing Beijing's communist influence, and trapping partner countries under huge debt. The Chinese regime later collects that debt by taking control of the strategic infrastructure it helped other countries build. Back in 2023, Italy resigned from the BRI, citing how trade in 2019 was heavily skewed in China's favor. That year, Italy exported roughly $18.6 billion in goods to China, but imported a massive $65 billion in goods from China. Elsewhere, Panama joined the Belt and Road Initiative in 2017. Since then, both Chinese investment in infrastructure projects and trade between them increased. Chinese companies also expanded their presence around the Panama Canal, increasing Beijing's influence over the region's strategic ports. A Center for Strategic and International Studies specialist said the Chinese Communist Party could easily take control of the ports in times of conflict.
Recently, the U.S. is pushing back, reviewing trade ties and stationing troops near the Panama Canal to counter China's influence. To counter China's global expansion efforts, the U.S. opened negotiations with countries looking to build fair trade relations. Last week, China threatened countries with retaliatory measures if they decide to cooperate with the U.S. The White House press secretary responded, saying that the world knows they need America. Shifting over to America's backyard, China has worked to extend its influence in the Caribbean and is raising major U.S. national security concerns. The chair of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, Congressman Rick Crawford, warned that China is moving to displace U.S. influence in this strategic region. China's expanding presence is partially due to its interest in the region's major oil and gas reserves. On top of that, the Caribbean is located along major shipping routes, giving strategic importance. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, China has made significant investments in Caribbean infrastructure. This includes ports, bridges, and upgrading electric grids, allowing China to boost its presence there. Another critical point is the Taiwan issue. Only 12 countries worldwide officially recognize Taiwan's sovereignty, and almost half of them are located in the Caribbean. By deepening ties with these nations, China hopes to reduce international support for Taiwan. That's because the Chinese Communist Party has vowed to take control of the democratic island, despite never having ruled it. In response, the Trump administration made strengthening U.S.-Caribbean relations a foreign policy priority. Crawford suggests that the U.S. offer development aid to support infrastructure projects in the region, which would help counter China's influence. Now we turn to the South China Sea. Tensions between the Philippines and China over resource-heavy waters are rising. A Chinese ship was caught conducting illegal marine research activities off the Philippines coast. The vessel was about 100 miles off the coast of the country, but within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. This zone is rich in critical minerals and seafood. The Chinese vessel was intercepted on Thursday by Philippines maritime law enforcement. It was found to be retrieving a deep-sea submersible detector. These subs are typically used for scientific missions and deep-sea exploration. The Philippine Coast Guard said the vessel was doing illegal research and shouldn't have been there. Meanwhile, the U.S. and Philippines conducted their annual joint military exercises on a Saturday. More than 14,000 troops participated. The exercises focused on improving and strengthening maritime defenses. The drills included soldiers from Australia and Japan and will continue through Thursday. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.